Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. We're going to be talking about how to spot scams. So, could you please tell me in the comments, first of all, where you're watching today? And have you ever seen or mm, fallen for a scam or felt that you might have someone tried to scam you in the world of TEFL, just let me know. Um, my name is Ryan, as I said. So I've been in the TEFL industry for about 20 years now, and I've worked for many different companies as a teacher trainer, a manager, a teacher. Um, so hopefully I can pass on some of my experience for you today. Okay, so let's see who we've got with us today. We've got Anna from London. We've got Serindia from Chicago, Carmel from Waterford in Ireland. I know Waterford very well. We've got viewers from Israel, from South Africa, M from the States, Mary from Canada. Natalia is watching from Sicily in Italy. It's great to see so many people from all over the world. Katie in Scotland. Um, and who else? We've got callers from viewers from Turkey. We've got Seti from South Africa, Manshi from India, and Grace from New York. That's fantastic. So let's get right into it, shall we? Maybe you can put in the comments if you've seen any scams out there. Okay, so how to spot scams and be aware about scams. The first thing to bear in mind is that the vast majority of organizations are completely legitimate, and most teachers will go through their whole career without any kind of issues at all. But it's always good to keep your eyes and ears open and know what kind of scams can be out there. So, just like in normal everyday internet use, there can be scams, financial scams, and so on. And the very small proportion of companies in this industry will be doing anything that is anything to worry about. But it's good to be aware about that. Um, Especially worth thinking about when you're going to work in another country, especially if it's far away from your home country. It can be a very nerve-wracking, daunting experience, a very stressful process. So, of course, there are good schools and there are bad schools, um, which is reflected in life. There are good and bad companies out there in the world, and it's the same with the teaching English industry. So it's important for you all to do your research and make sure that you're confident that you're making the right choices when you go and join a teaching company. Okay. But as I mentioned, most vast 99.99% of companies will be very good companies to work with. So where do we start? Where do we start looking? Well, we can obviously start looking once we've got our qualifications or we're ready to start dipping our toes into the employment market. We can look for jobs on reputable websites. Of course, the TEFL Academy is a great place to start, but there's also TEFL.com and other um, platforms for you to find teaching jobs on. So I think what we'll do, we'll have a quick look at the TEFL.com website. So as you can see, we're on the jobs board, and there are currently 18 145 jobs on the TEFL Academy jobs board. So here you can see the job listings. So we've got jobs, for example, in America, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on, Hong Kong. So all of these companies will have been checked out, but also it's good for you to do your own research as well and find out a bit more about these companies. For example, we can see an advert for Twin. The Twin is quite an established school. They've got branches everywhere. Um, they're based here in the UK as well. Some of my colleagues work for Twin. So those are one of the bigger companies out there. We'll speak a little bit later about some of those bigger companies. Okay. Um, let's have a quick look while we're here, maybe at TEFL.com. So as you can see, there are just over 5,000 positions in 45 countries here. So another good place to look for jobs. But you can find out more about that on the TEFL.com, TEFLacademy.com website. Okay, so once you've found uh, the right platform to look for jobs, you can start looking at the different companies. So these are some of the reputable websites that we can start our search from. Always a good place to start is the TEFL Academy website. You not only jobs, you can get great tips about teaching, methodology, experiences of other people that have gone abroad to teach. Um, Also, check out the national newspapers. They can have several jobs as well. For example, here in the UK, The Guardian, for example, has a whole section about teaching English as a foreign language jobs, and it's very, very well supported. Um, you can obviously do a Google search for TEFL jobs, and you can find websites here based in the UK, in Europe, and other places, in America, and so on. So yeah, do check out those particular websites. So I think it's a good idea if it's possible to travel with other people. If you and your friend are thinking about going abroad and teaching, I think that's a really good way to think about how to start the process. It's always good to travel with a friend. If you're not sure, it's a new country that you're going to. You're going into the unknown to a certain extent. Um, so it can make the experience a lot better. If you have friends or family who are also traveling, you can definitely travel together. Maybe the destination where you're going, you have friends there already. You can organize. You can make sure that you can meet up with them. Maybe you've got family in your destination country as well, or someone who's been there before who can give you some tips and advice. So it's not always possible, but try to go where you already know people. Um, you can be near them if it's possible. You can be within travel distance to where they are living in your destination country. And also, as I mentioned, you can get travel recommendations and go where other people you know have been. So you can chat to other teachers, other people on the course as well, maybe they've been to these destinations before. They will give you advice about the culture, the climate, banking and so on, cost of living. Or even if you've got some colleagues that have taught online, you can ask them about their experiences of teaching people from that country. Okay, so that's part of the research to find out people that are either living in your destination country or people that have been there before or even taught there before. So where to start? Obviously, it's a really good idea to talk to your friends and family about the jobs that you're interested in. Um, you can start by applying for jobs and talk to your friends and family. Maybe they'll notice something that you don't. It's always good to have a second pair of eyes if you're not too sure if something looks a bit suspicious, for example. Or they might have questions that you haven't thought of before. So it's always worth, getting a second opinion, getting someone else to look at job offers that you might have, or look at companies. They might be able to spot something that you haven't seen. Also, think about whether you want to work for a large or a small school. Um, Maybe you want to work for a very kind of small company that is in a small town, or you find that you want to work for larger organization that has a bit more of a wider reputation that you've heard of before. Okay, so for example, smaller schools can be family run businesses. um, Both small and large school have their pros and cons. They have their risks and benefits. Remember that big international schools like the EFs, um, the Shanes, the in Lingua, and so on. There, some of them are franchises, so they're going to be run slightly differently in each location. They're all going to have common things in place. The way their methodology, for example, their organization, their HR departments. They're going to have a lot of things in common, but there's going to be small differences depending on where you are. Okay, so that's definitely worth looking into. Um, and then you can make a choice. You can make a choice between these massive multinational language teaching companies, or you might find a really nice school in a very small village, for example, um, in a location that you like, that you trust, and they've got a nice family kind of small school vibe about them. They're a bit more bespoke and a bit more boutique type of schools. So continue to do your research. Look out for the organization's website. Um, Look at in detail about their platform. Is it a good website? Does it work properly? Does it look professional? Um, does it look legitimate? There might be spelling mistakes. The logos might look a bit strange or a bit unprofessional. Do the photos look authentic and genuine, for example? Look at the information on the school's website. What does it say about the organization? Is there lots of information there, or is it very vague, for example? Um, is there grammar mistakes on the website? That's always a massive red flag, isn't it? If you see grammar mistakes on the school's website. Mm. Also, check out their social media. The more reputable schools will have an established social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, maybe even TikTok and sites like that. And you can search them. You can look into the social media. You can look at the comments there to continue your research. You can Google the organization, and you can find lots of information about the companies online. You can find out what people have been saying about the organization. So if the organization doesn't really have an online presence apart from the advert, then that's probably something you should be concerned about. If it's just an advert without anything to back that up, at the very least, they should have a professional looking website without any mistakes and professional kind of setup, and more information about the school and about the location, about their students as well, and their methodology. So continue your research, look at that. Um, it could be a massive warning sign if they don't have a very authentic and professional looking online presence. But of course, this also depends on the size of the organization. Um, if it's one of these mega schools, a big corporation with lots of branches and franchise around the world, they should be quite well organized. They should have information about the different locations. It should be slightly different according to the location. Mm, but if it's a smaller school, maybe the internet usage is not high there, or it's not very well established, for example. This could be another reason. Maybe it's in a part of the world where um, certain social media platforms are not very popular, um, or they use different national variations on social media. So it's always good to kind of look out for that as well. If you know someone who's worked there before, of course, or has visited the country, or has any connections with the country, do ask them for their advice. Like, where should I be looking to find out information about this company? So look for reviews. Look for employees and of course student reviews, or across Google, social media, websites like Glassdoor, for example. You can get really a lot of information about a company on these websites. On LinkedIn as well. Um, once you start your online research, you can potentially find out a lot of um, great information about these companies, um, especially employee reviews on Glassdoor, for example. You can get real um, feedback about what it's like to work for that company. Of course, even better to find someone who's worked for that company before, and you can get their honest opinion about that. Um, so read reviews, and blacklists as well, on Reddit, for example. Um, but of course, you need to sometimes take this with a pinch of salt. Websites are such as Reddit. You can read these so-called blacklist reviews of schools and organization, where people have worked for them, but they've had some kind of problems. This can give you some idea about the kind of issues people have had working for these companies. Um, Take these reviews with a pinch of salt, then. Um, is it really a bad place to work, or is it someone that just had a very bad experience and they're just a disgruntled teacher who got fired for a particular reason? Or maybe they didn't have their contract renewed, so there could be a reason for them to give a negative review. I think, the more reviews the better, so you can have a balanced feedback, and a balanced view about the school or the organization. So keep a skeptical eye about these things, and yeah, just keep your eyes open for any kind of warning signs where you've got mm, the trend is lots of bad reviews for this organization. Also, look for the physical address. Um, Legitimate schools will have an actual address. You can look this up. You can look on Google Earth. You can actually find the street view. You can look at this, and you can look at the area to look and see if it looks the same as it does on their website. Um, if you can't find one, this is another big red light, a big warning sign. If a school only has a PO box, then this is a bit of a concern. This could be a scam. So but just be aware about that. Yeah, if it doesn't have a physical location, yeah, that would be a bit of a worry for me. That's you really need to check out that and find out why, what the case is. Look for schools with a physical location. So let's talk about the actual interview. So it's very important to bear in mind that if you're offered a job without an interview, it's not a good idea to accept that job offer, because reputable schools will always interview teachers before they offer you a contract. It's very important for schools to know what you're like as a teacher, to ask good questions about your teaching, your background, and so on. So if you're ever offered an automatic job without an interview, that's not a good idea. Um, does the interviewer seem professional? Um, are they asking the right questions? Um, they should be vetting their staff, but also, the thing about the interview is you've got an opportunity to ask them questions as well, and get a feel about what the school is like to work in. So, of course, stress interviews can be stressful, and sometimes you might have to perform a demonstration lesson. It's quite common, but this is part of the process, and I think it's a very good thing to have an opportunity for for you to is also interview the school that you'd like to work for as well, and ask lots of questions. Mm. So you can use the interview as an opportunity to learn more. um, any kind of queries or concerns that you've got, you can ask the person during the interview. Um, look at how they're dressed as well. Look at the background. If they're using a green screen, always looks a bit suspicious if they've got a screen. In my humble opinion, um, but think about the interviewer. Are they prepared? Do they have a list of questions ready to ask you? Um, Do they have questions about CPD and safeguarding and welfare of their students? Are they able to answer your questions without um, any vague answers? If they can they give you a clear answer about your salary, about the working conditions, the hours, and so on? So don't be afraid to ask lots of questions at the interview stage. So it's the stage where you're actually offered a job. This is fantastic. This is really good news. So now's the time to ask them to send you a copy of the contract so that you can have a good read of that and look for any warning signs on the contract. It's very important that you have time, that you're not pressurized to sign a contract without having a good look at it, and then potentially coming back and asking more questions about the contract. So they can send you this via email, and you can read this. This is absolutely should not be a problem for any school to send you a copy of the contract. Um, Quite often, the contract might be an e-document, but of course, you can download this and read this offline. Um, if it's possible, you can ask for a, a copy of the contract if it's just online, and good schools will definitely send you a copy of that. You can also ask to speak to a current or former employee. If they can't do this or they're reluctant to do this, that kind of tells you its own story, doesn't it? It kind of thinks, why would you not want me to talk to someone that works there at the moment or has worked there in the past? Okay, so that's a really great idea. Mm. You can ask the person that works there. Perhaps you can ask them what to expect about the organization, the city, the location, the country, the culture. Um, they won't be able to do this straight away. Perhaps maybe you can make um, a, a time for a follow up interview. You can set this up um, over the interview. And I don't think this is necessarily a problem. If they're keen to employ you, it's absolutely no problem for them for you to for them to organise a chat with someone that works there already. So just more about the interview. Some people have reported a scam where the interviewer says that there are technical issues and they need remote access to your device. On no circumstances does this happen. Allow this to happen. This is most definitely a scam. So you should end the interview right there and then. No interviewer needs to take remote access of your computer. This sounds like a classic scam. Um, so definitely don't allow this to happen. This is just turn off the interview. Don't make any further contact with that so-called organization. Okay, so just something to be aware of. I'm sure that we've all heard and seen the stories about scammers pretending to be banks, for example, where they need to take control, or technical support scams, where they ask to take control of your computer, and then they can manipulate, they can check your passwords and all kinds of things. So just be aware about that. Okay, so just more about the contract. You might have to pay for flights and visas. You might not have to do that. A school, reputable schools might support you with that. They might help to even pay for your flight out, or half your travel costs. But they might also need you to pay for your flights and visas. And you should do this yourself. You should not let the school do this for you. You should take responsibility for your own flight and visa arrangements. Okay, um, this would be fairly typically refunded when you arrive at the school. Okay, and this is fine. This is quite a normal situation for you to organize your own flights and visas, and for you to get your money back from the school. Um, also, to be fair, the schools have to protect themselves from bad teachers as well. Oh, okay, so they want to make sure that they're kind of they're not hiring someone who's just not going to show up after investing their time and money on flights and visas. But and also, I would feel much more comfortable organizing my own things as well, rather than put it into the hands of a school where you don't really know them very well yet, or you don't know the organization. So I think it's much better to take control of that and take your own responsibility. Also, very important is never ever pay any fees for a job. There's no reason for you to pay uh, any kind of money at all or fees upfront for a job. And this sounds very, very suspicious to me. So avoid this. There's no reason why you need to pay to do a job. So yeah, just be aware about that. Big red warning sign, big red flag. Um, Also, check for any penalties that might be in the contract, for any unreasonable penalties or clauses, and other things like this. Um, there might be things for clauses, for example, or penalties for missing lessons. And you should ask about this during the interview. This is another opportunity to ask about things in a second interview, for example, once you've seen a copy of the contract. Again, schools will need to protect themselves, so it's not unusual for contracts to avoid this type of thing. But it shouldn't be for anything that's unavoidable or anything unnecessary. It shouldn't be charging you for things like missing a lesson, for example. Please don't accept um, either doing lessons for free, even in the beginning. Okay, so this tends to happen more online for online teacher rather than face to face. You can end up doing free lessons for nothing and not getting paid. Um, so this is to be avoided. Doing a short demonstration lesson at the interview stage is quite typical, but this wouldn't be with the paying customers, and it certainly shouldn't be the full length of a lesson either. Um, it should be just a sample of your work. And good schools, good hiring managers, good academic managers will know um, how to spot a good teacher, and it's not necessary for you to do any free lessons up front. So let's talk briefly about teaching online. If you don't get paid or you don't get what you've agreed, then stop doing lessons. Don't teach any more classes. Put your pens down, put your headphones down. Um, so online lessons, of course, they can give you much more flexibility, but they will try to kind of get away with things. So don't let them do that. Um, they should pay you what you've agreed for the right number of lessons. Um, if they haven't taught you for any lessons, or they haven't paid you for what you've already done, then yeah, don't continue. Don't teach any more lessons. If the communication with the organization stops for any reason, then you know that's not a good sign. Then don't continue to teach. If there's anything that you're not happy with, then it's easier to walk away. Um, then if it's a legitimate reason why the communication has broken down, you can re-establish communication. Make sure that you've gotten paid for what you've done. Um, but yeah, so don't feel that you're obliged to work without getting paid. Okay. So the golden rule is, remember, if something looks too good to be true, then it probably is. It probably is too perfect. Question everything, and be ready to walk away if you feel it doesn't smell right. Um, there's so many opportunities out there for you to get a great job, and to work for a great organization, and it's a very fulfilling uh, experience when you do. If you're teaching online or if you're teaching in a foreign country. Okay, all right. So we're coming to the end of the presentation. I think I'll just go back and review a few things. Okay, so the thing to remember is that most organizations are legitimate. They're genuinely looking for good teachers, and you're not likely to have any problems in your teaching career. But it's good to keep your eyes open. We talked about some of the more established, reputable websites. Of course, the TEFL Academy is a great place to start, and there are other places like TEFL.com, where there are many jobs online and teaching face to face in lots of different countries. You can look at newspapers, Guardian. You can look at TEFL boards on social media, LinkedIn. But it's good to do your research, and if possible, travel with people that you know, travel with friends or family, or go to places where you know that people are already, or you know that people have been there as well. Um, Always good to have a second pair of eyes on a job advert or a job offer or contract. Um, think about whether you want to work for a large or a small organization, and they have their pros and cons. But it's really important to do lots of research before you start work for an organization. Look at their websites. Are there mistakes on there? Does it look authentic? Does it look professional? What other information can you find out about that organization? Do they have a social media presence? They should do. Um, and if it's just an advert, then that will be a reason to be concerned. Look for Glassdoor reviews. Look at Reddit for different opinions about schools. Just keep your eyes open for a physical address and check this yourself. Um, Great if you're able to actually go to the physical location and check out the school as well. But you can do this obviously online as well. Also, make sure that you are interviewed for the job. If there's no interview, move on. Um, Once you're in the interview, keep your eyes and ears open. Is it a professional interview? Are you able to ask questions about the school? Make sure that you get a contract that you can look at carefully before you agree to start, and even better, to talk to um, current or past employees of that company. And now, no accounts allow anybody to take control of your computer. This looks like a scam. So, if you ask to pay for flights and visas, um, it's fairly common, but you could certainly ask when you're going to get a refund for this if you're going to sign a contract. Um, on no account, pay any fees for a job, and look out for any what you think might be unreasonable penalties and clauses for missing lessons, for example, in the contract. And most definitely, don't do any free lessons, and don't be afraid to walk away if you're not getting paid for teaching, or if communication with that company breaks down. And the golden rule, once again, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Okay, so this is just a reminder that all of the previous webinars are uploaded to our YouTube Academy, YouTube channel, and they're available on the TEFL Academy or YouTube channel. Okay, so I'm actually going to hand over now to do some questions and answers. So now's a good time, if you've got any questions at all, to put those in the chat. Here's a comment from one of our viewers today. Can an organization ask for a payment for a placement program or condition placement against a culture course which includes the placement? Can an organization ask for payment for a placement program? I would be very wary about any organization that asks you to pay for any upfront payment on a placement program. This would be a cause for concern for me. I would definitely do more research and ask them why they would need for payment to be placed on this program. A condition payment against a culture course, which includes the placement. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure why they would need to combine a course and a placement together. Um, hmm, I'm not too sure about that. I think, if it's a course, a legitimate online course with a reputable company like the TEFL Academy, I think that's a little bit different. Um, but if it's just for placement, I'd be wary about that. I'd be wary about any company that asks you for any upfront payments. I hope that answers your question. Geraldine says, you said don't pay for it, any fees for a job and don't do the first lesson for free. How do you avoid the former with volunteering jobs and the latter with online platforms? Okay, well, the volunteering is something a little bit separate here. So I think if you're being asked to pay any fees, then you need to do a lot more research for that. Um, and if you're volunteering, of course, this is a totally different kettle of fish if you're actually applying for a paid job. For online platforms, you should still not be doing first lesson for free. If it's a demonstration lesson, that's slightly different. And I would say that a demonstration lesson should not be a lesson with paying customers. Um, they're getting something for nothing. A demonstration lesson should be between you and an interviewer at the interview stage. This is part of the interview process. It might be a recorded video demonstration as well. So that will be my advice. Ask lots of questions about this. If you're if you're being asked to pay for fees and doing free lessons, that would be a lot of questions for me. For volunteer organization, volunteering jobs, slightly different, because you're potentially giving up your time for a good cause. So these are two separate things, I would say. But I would do lots more research and ask many more questions about that. Mervyn asks, do you require a degree to be able to do online teaching? The short answer is no, not for every company. Um, it's sometimes asked for you to have a degree for certain companies, whether it's for online teaching or face to face. But there are many, many companies out there that don't require you to have a degree. Um, they would require you to have some kind of teaching qualification, but not necessarily a degree. Different countries have different rules as well, and different organizations have different um, criteria for their jobs. So, no, it's not always necessary for you to have a degree, especially for online teaching. Okay, hope that answers your question. Is it possible for me to get placed in any European organization while having UG and PG degrees in literature, along with a TEFL course with zero working experience? Okay, well, this is really a question about qualifications, um, but I would say that word any is a big word. I wouldn't say any European organization, but it certainly helps if you've got these types of qualifications, um, and especially once you've got a TEFL course, um, if you've got any TEFL course, I think without experience, I don't think that this is necessarily would hold you back because everybody has to start somewhere. But if you've got training with a good TEFL organization, a TEFL Academy course, for example, and a certificate, with a good number of hours on the course, and you can demonstrate your skills, then there's no reason why you can't get a really good starting job with very low or even no experience because you can prove your qualifications, you can prove your skills during the onboarding and interview stage. If there was a family emergency and you need to go home, are companies usually flexible with that? It's a very good question, Costa. I think that the more reputable companies would, I would say, they should be very, very understanding about this, um, and especially if you've worked for them and you've built up a good relationship with them. Every we're all humans, aren't we? Companies, if they are a good company and you've got a good working relationship with them, I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't be flexible with that. It would be mm, curious for me why a company would not help you out if they wanted you to continue working for them and you come back after the emergency potentially. Um, and I think it all depends on the organization and your relationship with that organization. Is this something that is happening with you, Costa? Um, I, it's interesting to find out, and speak to the organization, have a dialogue with them, and I think if they're a good organization with good people, they should be understanding and they should be flexible in this situation. How is the schedule of the TEFL Academy here? I got enrolled this week and started with your presentation. How can we follow? how the next step should be. Okay, well, this is kind of a question about the process of the TEFL Academy. I would contact the TEFL Academy technical team or someone in the organization. I'm not really in a position to help about the processes here. I'm not the best person to ask about because I'm here today to talk about particular scams today in this webinar. So my advice would be to talk to someone. You can raise a ticket if you've already started the course, and I'm sure there'll be someone there that can help you and more better answer your questions. Um, yeah, that's what I would do in that situation. Is a school likely to provide you a uniform? Okay, that's a great question. Thanks for the informative session, by the way. You're very welcome, Katie. I'm losing my voice again. It seems to be happening more and more, but I'm happy to help. Is the school likely to provide a uniform? They might very well do that. A uniform, they might be a T-shirt, for example, with the company's logo on. Um, it might be a shirt with a logo or something like that. It might be a dress code, and they should provide that if it's a company um, garment, for example, a t-shirt or a jumper or something like that, then they should definitely provide that for you. You shouldn't have to pay for your own uniform, definitely not. But if it's a dress code, of course, you know they might ask you to wear smart casual, for example, and that's slightly different. But if they want you to wear a uniform, a specific one, then they should provide that for you. The good company should do that for you. Okay, I'm glad that that helps. Next question. So I have two questions. What do you mean by methodology? So when I talk about methodology, it's very typical for a good company, good teachers, teaching companies, and good schools to have some information about their teaching methodology on their website. So what method do they use? Is it a communicated method? Is it more direct method? Is there information there about the materials that they use, about their systems, their online systems, for example? Is it a blended learning system that they use, for example? So that's what I mean. So look at the school's website, and if there's a section there about how we teach, how it works, our teachers, for example, any information there about what the lessons look like in the school. And also, when you said missing lessons, do you mean you as a teacher missing lessons or student missing lessons? Yeah, that's a very good question. So it could be either of those things. For example, there might be things in the contract that if you miss a lesson, there is some kind of mm, penalty for that. You know, of course, you know, things happen and we are human. Sometimes we can't make a lesson because we're ill or there's an emergency or whole range of different reasons why we can't make our lesson. And if you've got good communication with the school, you can let them know about this and they can provide cover for you. So there shouldn't be any kind of cost penalties for you missing a lesson. Um, in terms of you being ready to teach your lesson, you turn up on time. If it's an online class, you're ready to teach, but there's some maybe there are technical issues why your students can't be there, or your student just doesn't turn up. Then obviously that's not necessarily your fault, and you should be still paid for that. Um, it will be a warning sign for me if a school didn't pay you for the time, even if it's their, you know, um, a question of students not turning up for some reason or there's a technical problem. It's not your fault that you were prepared for that lesson. You've turned up and you should be paid for that lesson. Okay, just checking the time. Let's have a few more questions. Does it take longer to get employed if you only hold a TEFL certificate and with no degree? Ah, that's a really good question. I don't think it would necessarily take longer. I think in that situation, you you can you can kind of edit and you can filter out the schools that need a degree, and you can save yourself quite a lot of time. And you can focus on the schools that don't necessarily need a degree for you, and that would accept you with a TEFL certificate. So yeah, that's that would that I think that would be the best course of action. Um, of course, some schools are not very clear about their qualifications, and that would be another questionable warning sign. If the there's not clear information about what the requirements and qualifications are, there's a reason for that. Perhaps the school is not very organized. They're not very um, transparent about what they require from you as a teacher. But that's what I would do. I'd look for the schools that are very clear about the qualifications that they need. How can you prepare for a teaching demonstration if you don't have teaching experience? That's a fantastic question. Okay, so it might be your first ever experience of teaching. So my advice would be look online, look on YouTube for examples of what a demo lesson looks like. I think TEFL Academy has actually done webinars about this before, how to prepare for a demo lesson. Please check it out. And we've got some examples of that on the website and on the YouTube channel. But you can definitely find great examples of a demo lesson out there, and that's where I would start. That's a really really good question, um, and you can practice on your own. You can video yourself a few times and have some practice of giving a demo lesson. Also, to talk to people who've done it before. So maybe you've got some colleagues, people on the course, people online in teaching forums that have already done a demo lesson. Is it better to be in a country of interest and apply for schools once there, or can we apply from where we are if our research results seem legit? Another very good question. Yeah, I mean, it's great if you're already in the place and you're in a position where you can do your research there in the country of interest. You can go to the physical schools, you can ask people, you can actually visit the school, talk to teachers, talk to them face to face. But also, of course, if you're not in a position to do that, do as much research as you can before going out. And then, if you're comfortable, you're confident, if the contract looks right, the offer looks good, looks like a well established school with a legitimate website and offer, then you can be more confident of going out there. But yeah, absolutely. If you're in a position even to organize a trip to your country of choice first, if you can do that, that's I think that's a great option. Okay, so we've got about 5 more minutes. Let's try and get through as many questions as possible. I can see you've got some great questions here. If maybe I get a job in China, I will be teaching one school. I'm going to teach different schools. Impossible for me to answer that question. Different organizations have different needs. So if it's a big organization with multiple schools, you might be asked to teach in different locations in the same school. That's a question for you to ask at the interview stage. And that's a great question. Would this work when you want to teach abroad? Um, I think I need a bit more information, Mervyn. Just remind me, what was your question before? About having a degree. Yeah, I think in place in the UK, that certain schools will definitely need a degree, and in other places in Europe. In other locations outside Europe, it's more likely that you don't need a degree. I hope that answers your question. Here's a question about accredited places. How do you know the accredited places. And is it important to be accredited? That's a fantastic question. So you will know because they will have the accreditation on their website. There'll be a logo, for example, British Council or some other kind of accreditation in that country, and they'll be very, very prominent on the website. And you can ask about this at the interview stage as well. Is it important for a school to be accredited? I think it's good to have an accreditation um, for a school because it means that they're vetted, they'll be inspected on a regular basis, and the quality is more likely to be good in accredited schools, and they'll have certain um, standards for employment as well. So I think accreditation is a good thing to look out for. Okay, just a few more questions. Do companies generally take a fee or percentage for online teaching posts? Is that a normal expectation? Not in my experience. No, it's a fee for what? They shouldn't be charging you a fee for you to start work or to do your job. Um, if they're taking a percentage of online teaching, there are some teaching platforms out there where their model is they take a percentage of any fee, any teaching that you get for yourself. This is different for you working from a company. A company will pay you for the hours that you work. Um, so just be aware about that and be wary about any company that asks you to take a fee for you to teach. So it's information about logging in, but this is a question about how to log in to mm, get your next class. So I just wanted to put that up there for your information. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have time for you for answer all of your questions, unfortunately. But let's just try to do one more. What is the difference between an international school and public and private schools in terms for TEFL application? Okay. Well, there's lots of variation for schools out there. Public and private companies, publicly owned companies, for example, franchises, state schools, um, mm, organizations that are connected to universities, for example. So that it's very difficult to answer that without knowing which organizations. So my advice would be do your research, ask lots of questions about that. Um, do they have branches in different countries as well? You can find out what the variations are of different countries and different standards across the organization. Okay. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, but it's been my pleasure to talk to you today. I hope it's been interesting for you. And yeah, thanks for all your comments. That's really nice. Hopefully, I've been a help for you today. I'm just going to put some feedback requests for you in the comments. So thanks very much for you attending today. Um, and your feedback is always very much appreciated. Um, so once again, I hope to see you and talk to you again very soon. If you can go to the survey, the QR code, and give your feedback, that's very much appreciated. So wherever you are in the world today, I hope that you have a great day. And if you're applying for TEFL jobs, I wish you the very best of luck. Keep your eyes and ears open. Um, you're very unlikely to get scammed, but it's always good to be aware about these things. Okay, so that's all from me today. Um, Goodbye from me, and good luck as always. Bye bye.